So, if you've been following me for a while, then you've probably worked out that I have two tools that I really enjoy working with, the runes and the tarot. And I thought I'd share a little bit about the difference for me between the runes and the tarot and how I came across both of them and how I try to blend both. So, the runes definitely came first for me. Um, I it was my first husband was interested in a Nordic martial art, and I discovered the runes through him. And in fact, it was Christmas 1999 that I moved to Orkney to learn the runes and how to use the runes shamanically from my teacher. So the runes were my absolute passion. I work with the 16 runes of the Younger Futhark, which I know is a little bit more unusual. And I have recently published, it is a book rather than a booklet. I want to be very clear about that. It's about 6,000 words. You can get it direct from me, or either as a PDF or as a booklet, or you can get it via Amazon as well. So this is sort of my understanding of the runes. And when I was in Orkney, I learned how to use the runes as a shamanic tool, as a gateway for journeying. I built relationships with the deities. I learned how to use the runes as a life path to understand life, and also as a martial art. And I absolutely adored it. But what happened was I found out that I was pregnant, and suddenly shamanic work and martial arts just didn't appeal quite so much. I felt very much that it just didn't suit me being pregnant. And what I found in one of my bags at the back of the cupboard was a deck of Rider-Waite playing cards and a copy of 78 Degrees of Wisdom. So at this point, I was married. I found that I was pregnant. I was living off grid. We had no electric, we had no Wi Fi. My obsession had been the runes, the shamanics, and the martial arts, and I just didn't feel that I could enjoy any of that when I was pregnant. So I sat down to discover tarot, basically. As a child, I'd always dreamed of a never ending book. That'd be my big dream. One of my worst things in life is when you get to the end of a really good book, or even worse, a series of books, and then you finish, and that kind of like, oh, I don't want to read anything else. I just want to get back into that world. And that's what tarot felt like to me. It felt as if every time I shuffled and lay the cards, there was another story there. Of course, usually it was parts of my life story, understanding myself in different ways. But I read for other people, I read for other situations. And 9 months and the 78 Degrees of Wisdom and one deck of tarot cards, it was a wonderful 9 months. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So life continued. I actually ended up having 4 children. We moved, my husband and I, down to England because we felt that living off grid was A, very hard with children, and B, we wanted to give our children a more diverse sort of experience, because living off grid is pretty harsh. It's great if it's your choice, but we didn't feel it was appropriate to force that on the children, as it were. And then when my youngest was 5, I knew I needed to earn an income. I'd always wanted to run a sort of a holistic, spiritual, occult type business. I did think about the runes then, really did, but I didn't know how to translate my spiritual understanding of the runes into a business. And also the real difference between these two. The tarot is a tool. I'm obsessed by it. I love it, but it's a tool. Whereas the runes is my spiritual path. It is my wisdom tradition. It is more to me than the tarot. That's the only way I can describe it. So I set up my tarot business. It went quite well. I was teaching, I was reading, very much part-time gig, but very enjoyable. and I was teaching monthly locally to me in person, because this was, at this point I didn't even have a computer. I was doing everything from my phone. And when I was teaching sort of the first set of tarot workshops, I was still using a lot of my rune words. So I would use words like murk instead of shadow, and loss instead of your more personable side. I would use words like patron instead of spirit guide. And several people in the group would be asking me, why are you using these weird words? And I was like, oh, yeah, I used to do this runic thing a while ago. And after a while, a couple of them were like, the tarot's really interesting, but will you teach us the runes? And I'm going to be honest and say that really floored me, because I'd never taught the runes. It had been a very personal journey to me. And one of the things that really floored me was that I didn't own a rune set at that time, and I'd never read the runes. I read tarot, but I'd never read the runes. So I rang my teacher and I said, people want me to teach them runes. I'm not sure. And I've never actually read. How do I turn around and tell them I've never read the runes? And what my teacher said was really simple. Well, you work as a shaman, so if you want information from the runes, you are going to journey and ask the deities rather than reading a rune deck. And that just really sat with me, and I was like, oh, okay, I can sit with that. So that's how I started. I was reading the tarot, but I was teaching the shamanic practices of the runes. And what that means is it means chanting the sounds of different runes. And if you go to my website, and I definitely want to add some more of these, there are some examples of me chanting. It's probably under lead meditations. And so I taught that, and I've actually been teaching that. I think it must be nearly 9 years now. We meet quite locally to me, and usually twice a month we gather and we chant the runes, and it's just been really fascinating. But over time, people wanted more sort of teaching. They wanted to be able to read the runes, and so together we really started understanding each of the runes separately. Would be about 2 years ago now, where what we did was we got the 16 runes out on a table and we looked at them, and I was saying to my students, right, which ones do you know, which ones don't you know, where are you confused? And that was it was 2 years ago this October, and that was a real wake-up call, because as we looked at the runes, I realized that my students only knew the runes that I liked. Really bad teaching. That I'd never actually taught my favorite rune, which, in case you're wondering, is that one. Let's have a little scoot through. I hardly ever taught Frigg. I know, sounds shocking, I'd overlooked her. I never taught Hagel or Heimdall. The deity is Heimdall, the rune is Hagel. Heimdall is all about structure and organisation, and I'm chaotic and disorganised. Never taught it. Never really taught Balder either, or Sol. Let's put that one there. Just kind of, they didn't suit me. They didn't sit with me. We worked with Ul a lot. We worked with Loki all the time. Love working with Loki. We worked with Hel a lot. We also worked with Njord a lot. But looking at which runes my students knew and which runes my students didn't know, it was a wake-up call. And so we decided that we would work with one rune a month and ensure that we would always finish all of the runes. And that then is the basis of the booklet. That's where the booklet came from. So for me, what I would say is tarot is life guidance. Tarot is a tool. Tarot absorbs me. It fascinates me. It's very accessible. It's very easy when you're doing a reading. Would be the Seven of Wands, which I associate actually as a very runic card. It's very easy to share the image with a client and pick out details like the boots or the fact that he's high on higher ground or the defensive stance. And it's very easy to use the images to illustrate what you're saying to a client, which is wonderful. But when you're pulling runes, it's really hard to pull in that extra information and express it clearly and concisely to a client. So I do rune readings. I have them available as email readings on my website. And I also offer a very specific 50-minute rune support where we can do rune readings together and sort of just explore the runes together. But I guess that's the biggest difference. This little bag of the 16 different runes, to me, they are my spiritual path. They are a spiritual tool. And although I do charge for my time because I'm only human, I have bills to pay just like most of us do, I didn't want to build a business that was entirely based on the runes. It just didn't. I'm happy to share them. And I'm really delighted to, experience them with other people and share whatever wisdom I have. But I kind of didn't want it to be the foundation of my business. It just didn't sit right. And so that to me is the difference. Do I blend the two together? Yes, I do. For me, the runes tend to give a bigger overview of a situation, and the tarot then tends to look at the smaller details. I may well, if I know that a client is interested in the runes or is fascinated by them, or if they have sort of a Nordic connection, then I may well say, would you like me to pull the runes on that? If I've got a client coming and maybe I'm aware it's a very difficult session, maybe I'm aware that the client is in a very difficult space, I may well pull 3 runes before the session to give me guidance as to how to hold the space. And if I was going to blend the two for myself, and let's do an example. Let's think. Let's just do life. I got a lot going on at the moment. I remain anxious about my home. I rent. I'm in the UK. There's no protection for tenants in the UK. And we've got ongoing problems with roof leakings and damp. So let's ask about that. Let's ask about home. So what I would do is I would probably do the rune reading to do the overview. So looking at the past, the rune is Fi, the deity is Frey. Looking at the present moment, we have Hel, the rune is Rai. And then looking for the future. And with this rune deck, it's important to note that each rune is present 3 times. That means that the same rune can come up in all 3 places. If you'd like to buy a rune set, I do make and sell these. You can buy them direct from my website. And the rune for the future. So when you pull them out, I'm not looking, but you have to... lovely. You have to decide as you pull them out before you look, and there you go. Got the two rise, 2 hells, which side it is. So in my rune booklet, which you can, as I said, you can get this from my website or from Amazon. What I've done, if we go to the Fi rune, we've got the name. The name of the rune, the name of the deity, the rune itself. We've got the rune poem. We've got some personal reflections and some personal understandings on both the deity and the rune, and then some keywords. So the rune for the past, what really it is the rune Fi is Fi or Frey is about wealth. It's about abundance. It's about casting off bondage and having freedom. And I think, I need to begin to appreciate we are lucky, even though I'm negative about my property. Our landlord owns a lot of properties outright. He's a professional landlord. And even though I worry about it, he is unlikely to evict us as long as I pay the rent. And actually living here in particular has really allowed me to grow my business. I work from a caravan in my garden and my landlord knows about it. My workshops are done in St Barnes that I rent from him. Living here in the woods in East Sussex has allowed me to grow as a professional. And I think I need to appreciate that more. I love Hel as a deity. She is one of my patrons. She's a deity that I work with most and genuinely associate as. If we come to the page on Hel, personal strength and integrity is, when I think about Hel, she's rules the underworld. And when Odin's son Balder died and he went to Hel, the gods were desperate for Hel to release him. But she said no, because she followed the natural rules. She followed the natural laws. She did what she believed was right. She didn't do what others pressed her to do. And so to me, Hel is a really strong rune, a rune of doing what you need to do and standing up for yourself. And actually Vidar, I've just finished doing a whole month on Vidar. Again, a genuine rune that I adore working with. To me, Vidar is connected with strength and peace. And we've got here in the keyword strength, a considered response, the long game, doing what is needed. I think what the runes are saying is that my home is safe. Stop stressing about it. That I'm the one that's bringing the anxiety into this this rental property, not my landlord. My landlord, not the best of landlords in the world, but he's never threatened to evict me. That is all coming from me. So to rest, to value the abundance that this property brings me, and to create the home and the peace. So I would call that it hasn't answered specific questions, but it's given me the bigger picture. To rest in peace in my home and enjoy the abundance. But we've got 2 visits, one today, one next week, looking at the damp, looking at the water that's leaking in through the roof. And I am worried about that. Should I be quite bold and demanding? Or should I just point out what's there? This is much more about how do I handle these 2 visits. I'm asking for advice now. I get some satisfaction here. I wouldn't have wanted to see Loki there. Unexpected change. I probably wouldn't have wanted to see Thor there. Yes, it's protection, but it's also about aggression. These feel very comfortable, very safe, very grounded runes, and I'm glad of them. 3 of Pentacles, how do I best handle these visits? Well, the 3 of Pentacles is getting things in good order, building a strong foundation. And I can tell you we have been cleaning and decluttering like nobody's business. Good. The Queen of Pentacles, act like it's my home. Sometimes I over-identify as the tenant and I forget that because I pay the rent, this is actually my home. And the King of Cups. King of Cups is wise counsel. So it's suggesting I'm not too aggressive. I'm not too abrupt. I really could yell at these people. But I'm quite measured, quite professional. Put on my professional voice, which apparently the children tell me I have. And act in a calm and measured way. And the 2 of Swords, perhaps to remember that some of my anxiety about the property is not to do with my landlord and is more to do with me and my personal triggers. So that's how I would blend the 2. With the Rye rune in particular, the Rye rune can mean a journey. So if the 3rd rune, the rune for the future, the unformed future, if that was about disruption or change, if it was Odin perhaps for the frenzied nature, if it was Loki for the unexpected change, if it was for Thor, that thrusting, pushing nature, then I may have been looking to see perhaps there is a move here. Perhaps it's the right time to move, or maybe I'm going to be asked to move. But because these two both resonate with that grounded, calm, peaceful energy, I'm getting the sense that the runes are telling me to quit worrying and rest. So I'll be trying to share some more videos combining runes and tarot and trying to express where they are similar and where they are different. I hope you found it helpful. And yeah, pop to Amazon, pop to my website if you are fascinated by either of my books.